We are going to take 3 candidates today, which is Advocate Bell, Advocate Mop, and Advocate Johnson. And the 3 other candidates, Advocate Kanyile, Advocate Kronye, and Advocate Simelani, will be taken tomorrow, not today. So that's the process that I wanted to attend to. Then the second area I want to deal with, we have received a letter with intention to interdict the process. This letter comes from, where's the letter now? Okay, it's coming from Minde, Shapira, and Smith attorneys on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, of threatening to go to court urgently. The letter is dated the 7th, but was received by us as the panel today, so we had to reflect on it. I will not go into detail because we do believe that this is self-inflicted agency, but also there are no merit on it because we have not shortlisted. So the lawyers will respond to the attorneys and the DA. And I must indicate amongst the comments we received out of the 201 that I've mentioned that closed on the 5th, Democratic Alliance did not submit any public comments in this process that we have received. So the letter has been received. It's a letter that threatens to go to court. We have instructed our attorneys, our legal team, to respond to the letter, and should their urgent application be brought forward, to respond to it. We do feel that there is no need to halt the process as the panel. There is no basis, and therefore the letter as sent is actually misguided, but we'll respond to it legally with the teams. So that's the process we want to explain in terms of what we have in front of us and how we are going to handle the process. I thought, let's start that process, take members of the public and media on how we're going to run the process and what is expected and how we're going to deal with the process. So thank you very much for that. I think I'll allow the panel to settle for about 2 minutes before we take the first candidate to come through. If the members can start assisting Secretariat, if can assist in getting us the person through. Members. Good morning, Advocate Bell.
Good morning, Minister.
How are you?
Panel members, I am very well, thank you.
I'm okay. We're starting with you and we're going to proceed. I'm sure you're familiar with the panel members. Okay, thank you very much. I will not waste time with introducing them because I've done that already. Just to explain to you in terms of the process, we've sent you a questionnaire which you had to complete. I'll take you through that questionnaire. And then when I'm done, members, or even in between, because it's an interactive session, if there's a follow-up, any member of the panel will come through. And then after that, we'll have a question session that we engage beyond the questionnaire. And then lastly, you would have received the public comments that relates to you specifically and your response. So with that regards, let me just see who's the allocated member. Ms. Maluleke, the HESA, will take you through your public comments. She'll be the lead person in that area of your public comments.
Thank you, Minister. Before we proceed, when I went through the questionnaire, I noticed one mistake.
Okay.
I was appointed on 1 May 1995. I'm very proud of that because that is Workers' Day and not 1 March. Apologies for
or 1 May 1995 on your process of appointment. Okay, that is noted. Thank you very much. And Workers' Day. Okay, thank you. Just to start, you had to sign the form as well, and I'll take you through. So we've got section 1 that deals with your personal details, and that was where I was going to come to say all this information is accurate as per your form. You can confirm and all that. I won't go into that one. But take us through your qualifications, why they are relevant for you to be an NDPP. Switch on the mic as well.
My tertiary education, I've got BA Law, LLB and LLM. LLM specializing in labor law and commercial law. Why I've got the qualifications? I don't only have the qualifications, but I've got the practical experience in applying the knowledge that I gained at tertiary level. Why I specialized in labor law? I was always fascinated in how we treat employees, fairness, and in commercial law, it was challenging at varsity, and I wanted to prove myself that I am better than that qualification. I studied at part-time LLB through UNISA, while I was a senior state advocate in the Director Public Prosecution's Johannesburg office. So at the time, it was challenging to be in court every day and to study subjects that you're not dealing with on a daily basis. But knowledge is power, and that knowledge has come in very helpful in my career as it expanded. I studied LLB and BA Law at the University of the Western Cape. It was challenging days, but I learned a lot of practical experience. I deliberately chose Western Cape because I grew up here in Gauteng, very sheltered environment where everybody knows you in a close-knit community. So I wanted to experience freedom, what it means to change the era that we were in the early 90s, to be independent and yet contribute to where we were in the country. Then the LLM, that was through UNISA that I studied.
Quite interesting as well. So link that, because you're saying to us that you also deliberately wanted to make sure that you've got the practical experience. Yes. And I'm seeing here, as you say, you corrected that you've been public prosecutor from the 1st of May 1995 to 96. Then you became the state attorney, state advocate from April 1996 to 99. And then you became senior state advocate 1999 to 2000, deputy director public prosecutions 2004 to 2008, deputy director public prosecution 2008, or that one was junior, then you became a senior one until 2022, director public prosecutor acting 2020-2022, and then since 2022 to date, you've become the director of public prosecution. Do you think out of this work you've gained enough experience to be able to lead the entirety of the NPA with various divisions, the NDPPs? Like the law says, you can appoint 4 as an NDPP maximum, and all these provinces and all these offices.
Let me start with answering by where it started in my career, in the era in which I was appointed. I have been in service as a prosecutor for the last 30 years, a public service, a public servant. I have seen and served through the NPA through all its many seasons of transition. When I joined the NPA, it was still the Attorney General's office. Soon thereafter, in 1998, the National Prosecuting Authority was established. Transition, great excitement. We were placed in positions as a female of color. I was fast-tracked, but I had to show that I can do the work, that I've earned my seat at the table, that I can prosecute, In those days, it was difficult. I think some of us have forgotten, if you're new, if you're a female in the institution, Many of the judiciary and council had not seen women of color being in the High Court prosecuting. So you had to earn your stripes. You didn't even have to work hard. You had to work extra hard to prove that you're up to the task. As I was sitting outside, I was thinking, I always find myself when I move into a new position in this era of transition. And what I can say about myself and the NPA as well, we are resilient. Despite the obstacles that there is, we ensure that justice is done every day. But by looking at me, when I took the position of the director in the Western Cape, many of the senior management had retired, the support that the office had relied on for a long time. So there was an opportunity for me for growth, recruitment, recruiting people of potential, developing them, and also keeping the staff morale high. I've worked through instances where we couldn't recruit in the NPA for years. But what did we do? We used it as an opportunity. People were placed in acting positions where we could mentor them. So if the opportunities opened up, they were ready. Am I ready to serve the entire NPA? Yes, I've got the benefit that I've worked in two of the largest divisions. For the last 5 years, I've been on the national management of the entire NPA. My division is huge. We deal with multiple crime types, and we rely on all our stakeholders to do the good work. Crime is high in the Western Cape, but we haven't given up hope. We're innovative every day as to how we tackle crime and instill confidence in the public. So yes, I am ready to serve. Will there be challenges? Definitely. Will I be able to overcome it? Yes, Minister, with the help of good partners and a good support team.
Thank you very much. I think the other areas will be explored as we go in. I'm just getting so that the panel and all of us get to know you. Now, going into the area of your court experience, I noted that one of the issues that we were looking at, do you appear? And I know that DPPs don't have to appear in court. It's optional. Is there a particular reason you just decided not to appear?
It's not a question of deciding not to appear. Litigation is my passion. That is where I prefer to be. But if you are the strategic leader in the province, you must lead, you must have vision, you must have support and provide the necessary structures. As a deputy, I was in charge of the High Court role. My predecessor, because of the portfolio, did not always want me to go to court, but I would slip in opportunities to go to court. If our advocates are not ready, if it's a particularly tricky case, then I would go to court. I am at ease in court. That is where I'm skilled in. Thank you.
Thank you. I noted earlier on you spoke about your work and passion in labor law. But the questionnaire as well asked you about other areas of law that you actually would say. For example, quite a lot of work as well would go into criminal law, constitutional law. Maybe take us through. You've highlighted even administrative law. Just leave it open.
Yes. As a prosecutor, you don't only work with the criminal procedure law. You work with the Constitution is your Bible. You have to know procedure. You have to know civil procedure and also administrative law. That is what governs the NPA and how we work. So yes, there's been constitutional challenges in my office where I've guided, where we've submitted affidavits. So I have experience therein, but my bulk of experience is in criminal law. But you have to have knowledge of, it's not just a one way of how it all fits in together.
Then we're moving to the next section in terms of management experience. I noticed that you started having substantive number of employees reporting to you from 1st March 2020. The previous years, for example, you'd have had about 4 to 6 advocates reporting to you when you were deputy director, and when you were junior. When you were senior, you had about 20 maximum reporting to you. It's only in terms of 2020 that you had about 693 when you were acting, and currently. Do you think this experience have given you sufficient understanding, noting that it's the Western Cape at the whole? Between 2020 and 2025 is 5 years. You've built enough experience. Maybe just take us through.
Maybe I can give context to why I've given those numbers. As a direct supervisor, where you sign the performance contract with the advocate, those were 5 and more. But even as a senior state advocate in the Johannesburg office, when the national office at VGM was created, I was appointed as a senior state advocate. I had to take charge of the appeal role. There, many of the advocates report to you, where you guide them, where you enroll the matter. So you're not their direct supervisor, but you are in charge of that. Even so when I was appointed as deputy, for most of the 20 years, I was in charge of the High Court role. So that is not just mentoring the 5 people that have signed a performance contract with me. It is training all the advocates in the division. On a daily basis, prosecutors would call you for guidance where you need to give assistance as the deputy director. So that is the content. So it's not just in the last 5 years that I've been managing people. Throughout my career, mentoring and managing others have been part of my work.
Okay, thank you. Then one of the areas you talk about is that your management skills or your style of management is primarily consultative and inclusive. And other people can argue that that type of sometimes that consultative can be something that you end up with a person who's indecisive because they're consulting forever.
I'm not going to switch off again. I'll sit on my hands. It is important to hear all the voices in the room, even the dissenting ones, for people to feel accountable and part of the decision maker. But as the leader, the final decision, the accountability lies with me. So it's inclusive, but I make the decisions. In the difficult moments, it rests on me to make those decisions. But you have to have your team on board. You have to listen to them. You have to listen to all the views. The Jocelyn Smith matter was one case in particular where it had huge reputational damage, where not everybody was convinced in my office that we had a reasonable case. Some were concerned about malicious prosecution, and they had valid arguments for it. And then there was voices that said it's community interest, it's not malicious prosecution. So I had to sit, listen to all the views, and then make the final decision. So that is what I mean by being inclusive. But the decision has to be made, and it has to be made swiftly, and you must be accountable for the decision made.
Maybe let's venture into that. I see as part of your leadership and organizational development, you are reflecting that a good leadership means being mindful, ethical, decisive, transparent, and accountable of your own decision. What does that mean as an NDPP? When a person is an NDPP, what would that transparency mean? What would be that accountability? Because the public currently cries for accountability and transparency in what is happening.
Regular accountability and transparency is being able to give explanations for your decisions, entrust the public to know what the process is, but also protecting the integrity of the investigation as well. public relies on information. We're living in a advanced digital era where information spreads very quickly. So you need to be on the pulse of what is happening. You need to be to explain. Not everybody knows how the law processes work. That needs to be explained. You need to be accountable for it. And some of the decisions are going to be difficult. It's going to be unpopular. But you have to explain it, and your guidance should be the rule of law, adhering to the values that are enshrined in the Constitution.
And do you think that an NDPP should appear before Parliament, which is politicians, to account for the decisions that they have made in prosecution?
Parliament represents the people. We represent the people. We need to explain, to be accountable for the work that we do, the decisions that we are making, and the trust that has been given to us. Absolutely.
Thank you. And other members will come to some of the issues later. Let's go to the ethics area and integrity. Just to confirm, the questionnaire asked you if you've ever been suspended in your position or other previous one. Have you gone through disciplinary process? Currently, NPA, we have the ethics office. Have you been referred to that? Any of those that we need to be aware of?
I have not been referred to the ethics Office of Ethics and Accountability, but a complainant has laid a complaint with the LPC, the institution guiding the governance of practitioners. Yes, that complaint was dismissed because it was based on a prosecutorial decision that I have made. I've submitted a letter from the LPC admitting or showing same.
Was it dismissed because it was lodged at the wrong place, or there were no merits?
There were no merits in it, and it was lodged at the wrong place. I checked our file. The complaint was never further pursued by the complainant.
The next area, it's around your contribution. As we know, our country is that we're looking at mostly the contribution of individuals within the society, but also in terms of the pursuit for justice. And I noted that you concluded some of the high-profile, you listed some of the high-profile trials that you've been. Do you want to share one of them that you think is significant for us to note in terms of your contribution to law and access to justice?
I believe, Minister, that all the work that I do on a daily basis contributes. But a highlight would be the Jocelyn Smith matter, although I didn't prosecute in it. It called for decisive decision-making. It impacted that community. And redressing and being victim-centric, it was important that justice be served to that community. I asked my role planner, go out with SAPS, go and try and find a venue where we can have the trial there before I approach the judge president, because circuit courts is very expensive because the entire court personnel has to move. I said, go and speak, but be mindful, we are a party to the proceeding. We can guide the High Court where to go. At one stage, the invoice for the center where the trial were to be held was in the name of my deputy. I had to intervene and ask the deputy, remind the city that it's the public that they serve. There should be no account. We're not in charge of it, but speak to the High Court, and we handed it over to the High Court to take the negotiations further. That case demonstrates that if we all work together, collaboration, justice can be victim-centric and it can be swift as well. It was also a groundbreaker because we were testing the law. We were expanding the law. A child being sold for sale and the victim not being found was a first. Yes, in matters where there was death before, we've been able to prosecute, but this was developing the law. Another one that was quite challenging in my career is a previous political figure, a minister that was charged for corruption in the High Court. He was acquitted. The judge presiding over the matter was a very senior judge. In fact, he was a former judge president of the matter. I studied the record and was of the view that all the issues were not ventilated in open court. It is not an easy decision or process to have a decision of the High Court reversed. We were able to do that because the grip of corruption on the country is rife. We need not just to show, but the merits of that case showed that we must act decisively and swiftly against the scourge of corruption in the country.
Thank you very much. As I come towards the end of the questionnaire, can I confirm that you do not hold any directorship or interest in business as listed here?
Correctly so, Minister.
And can I confirm there are no health issues that will impact on your work?
No health issues, Minister.
That concludes the questionnaire, and I'll move to commencing the second part of the interview. And my first issue there, perhaps just share with us, one of the interesting things I noticed is that in the Western Cape office, there was cross-nomination. I'm not so sure if you're aware. You had somebody that nominated you, themselves nominated, and supported within the same office. And none of the stakeholders were coming through or any. Can you share with us, was the team sitting, deciding that we're going to nominate one of us, going to make it? What had happened in that regard?
Not at all, Minister. Both the candidate, Advocate Mob, and myself were nominated by senior management.
Two more, actually. The people who nominated you actually also got nominated from your office.
Indeed, Minister. We were concerned as to the candidate, Mr. Mope, and I, as to we didn't want rivalry in the office, but because of the team that we had built, the leadership that our leadership team was fine. When I took office, was fairly new. It was transferring skills, developing, and encouraging them that we need different views, whether you're matured, older, whether you're new in the province as well. So the management team have found their voices and they're very strong about it. And I was reminded that, and this is what I tell prosecutors as well, we are in service. Servant leadership, that is what we do. Whenever I go to prosecutors, I tell them we are the people's lawyer. We work in very difficult circumstances, but communities look up to us. So when the call came, I was reminded, you were saying that to all of us. Now is the time for you to prove that servant leadership. I always saw my role.
So you guys discussed it as an office with the senior managers?
No, I didn't know. I only heard when the nomination process was already. I was approached by two senior deputies. I did not know that they had spoken to each other. I asked for an opportunity. It was a Friday afternoon to reflect on the possibility of being nominated. The Monday, I was reminded. I said to them, it is a huge responsibility. We need to support as management whoever is appointed. The Western Cape has always been vocal, have been innovative, have been challenging. So for the division to make various nominations should not surprise anybody. There's always a question, what is the Western Cape Division, the senior management saying? Whether it's a case happening elsewhere in the country, we give support, we give advice. We see ourselves as part of the leadership of the Western Cape, of the entire country.
Thank you very much. Prof. Fikeni has a follow-up on that.
I just want to check, Advocate, if there was no moral discomfort with the discussion of cross nominations within the office.
Between the candidates?
Yes.
Yes. There was, that it would cause division, that others might feel that they are pressurized to make the nomination as well. But the emotional intelligence that both I and the other candidate have reassured us that for us, I was concerned about the office, what happens after that. But we've put good structures in place, good processes where we hold each other accountable. So yes, I felt a little bit uncomfortable. Two of us are being nominated. It's a huge honor to be called to this interview and to be of service. And we recognize that responsibility. There was also a concern that if you don't put up your hand, who else will be? I was reminded recently in a training session that you are the leader that you're waiting for. So nobody else might answer to the call. And as we've seen with the nomination process, very few answer to the call because of how difficult and challenging this position can be. And I think both of us are acutely aware of that.
Thank you very much. I'll move to the next area. You just spoke about the challenges. Take us through what becomes your vision and what are those challenges that as the NDPP, should you be considered, you will have to face and how you're going to deal with it. What will we see of the NPA under your leadership?
The Advocate Batoy has built a foundation. And now it would be my vision, or under my leadership, to accelerate that. The distrust in the NPA and the services that we provide, to address that is by having an ethical leadership team, by being accountable. I previously explained what accountability is, but adhering to the values as in Section 195 of the Constitution, the administration of justice based on being accountable, being professional, using resources effectively. How would that NPA look like? That NPA would be principled, would be accountable, would be ethical. Work-wise, how will it look? It will be looking at the IDEC, accelerating the work that they're doing, insulating them. They already have appointments, but to attract skilled professionals to deal with corruption. In the Glenister 2 constitutional matter, the STIRS principle was applied for an independent corruption body to be insulated. It has to be operationally and also financially independent. It has to have specialized skill, independent. The staff needs to be trained professionally. There needs to be a security of tenure. You don't want to appoint skilled persons and then you lose them through other appointments because there are better offers elsewhere. You lose that skill, you use time spent on that, and also to follow a clear prosecution plan in every matter. especially in high court, in high-profile matters, where we have a prosecutor-guided approach, applying project management principles, where you have timelines, outcomes, risks that you consider, but there needs to be an end date. You can't investigate forever, and updating the public constantly. A victim-centric approach, the scourge of gender-based violence, is not an add-on for a prosecution service. It should be at the heart of what we do on a daily basis, where we give comfort to the victim, to survivorhood, where we respond swiftly and compassionately. The work, and if we think of the Western Cape in particular, organized crime, the NPA has established an organized crime strategy. It's now fully implementing that, using the legislation that's available to POCA, racketeering, money laundering, but more importantly, taking the benefits out of crime. Asset forfeiture should be at the center of all the work that we do. Some call it disruption. I prefer to call it strategic, impactful prosecutions where it instills confidence and the community that we provide the service to feels safer. Economic development is important. How do you track investment? We've shown through the latest set of recommendations, this country is resilient. If we put all our resources together, coordinate, and deal with money laundering, terror financing, then we can attract investments, we can build the rule of law, have principled institutions that community can rely on.
Maybe just going into that as my last segment of justice. You spoke about, when you talk about the vision, and you flagged gender-based violence, organized crime, and all that. But if we look at the annual report of NPA that just been released, recently tabled before Parliament, Western Cape is one of the lowest performing on sexual offences conviction. Also sitting at 68% below the target. You look at murder rates, it's sitting with 3 other provinces below, around 76%, which is one of the issues that we are seeing in terms of organized. I think the other one, you are in almost 3 areas, Western Cape is performing at the bottom, including the infrastructure, essential infrastructure.
Yes.
And we've seen 8.1% of postponement of cases out of prosecutorial residence. Now, link that of the performance of the Western Cape with what you are saying. If we flag sexual offences, gender-based violence as one of the crises we have in the country, but we look at the performance of the Western Cape, how do we get convinced that this will not be following you to the national level?
I can assure you that it won't follow me. If we look at the latest performance of the Western Cape, it was a concern for us. We flagged essential infrastructure, murder rate, as well as sexual offences. And we looked in particular which courts are not performing and where it is that they're not performing and what interventions we can put in place. I recently, 2 months ago, met with the prosecutors in charge of sexual offences to say the number has gone up. We have reached the target. It looks like our interventions have worked, but the plan mustn't just be to meet the target. Justice must be felt. Victims must be seeing it. So we looked at best practices. For instance, on the West Coast, there is no Thuthuzela Care Centre. There is, of course, no excuse for not performing. We reinforced by sending the case manager of our sexual offences and community affairs to give training, to do screening, to support the prosecutor there. Their performance has been the best since it's ever been. Everybody is now following that best practice. In our Peru court, we had a victim support room that didn't instill dignity, confidence in the process. We are interviewed when you do cases well by the TV producers. They come out, they ask. So we ask them, we don't want donor funding. Go to Peru court. After you've been there, then we'll speak to you again. Go help us restore dignity to those victims. Sexual offences cases are difficult by nature. Very often, the complainant wants to withdraw. But we need to ensure that that withdrawal is an informed decision, that we have taken you to the processes, you know you've been prepared by a court preparation officer. Just last month, I received, or 2 weeks ago, an email from a mother who had received services of that Peru court. She thanked the court, all the staff. She said it was the most harrowing experience what had happened to her child. But just by going to the court, having the security greeting her, taking her to that room that is so comforting, the court preparation officer preparing her and the child for what is to come, taking them to court, the guidance, the counseling that they receive, that is justice to the people. So, Minister, we are constantly improving. We are looking at the data. Essential infrastructure, in particular, when we looked, it was our Cape Town court, that area that was not successful. You start with introspection first. Do the prosecutor need training? Are we not presenting the evidence correctly? And we found multiple factors. So we sent one of the deputies out. He's given training to the officials who do the arrest, what must be in the statement. He's also taken the prosecutors to how the evidence must be led. That statistic has also improved. Murder in the Western Cape. Minister, the murder figures in the Western Cape is the highest in the country. It is a concern for myself as well as the provincial commissioner. I have dedicated an advocate, a senior in my office, to screen all murder matters, to see what we can improve and where we can improve it. The community started to complain. Witnesses are scared to testify. They are afraid. There has been several shootings at the court where people have been called, have been killed. That causes so much damage to confidence in the criminal justice system. To convince a witness to come and testify, put your life at risk. Yes, there's witness protection, and witness protection in the NPA does a sterling job. But communities are fearful. They are reluctant to testify. Just last week, for the second time in 2 months, I had to go out to Athlone Court, where I had to speak not just to the prosecutors, but to the staff that services their court, where the prosecutor had moments before the shooting happened, passed the shooter. So our people work under very difficult circumstances. It's no excuse. The following day, they had to be in court. So we have the screening murder project, and when I looked at what drives murders, what is the driver of murders in the Western Cape, it's firearms. It's whether we are addressing a possession of a firearm at the first instance properly so that it doesn't escalate to a racketeering matter. We have made good progress on that. We've got a project On firearms, the stabilization project has been established in the Western Cape to deal with murders, deal with safety at courts, and how we address gang violence.
Thank you very much, Advocate Bell. I actually wanted to check your stats over 5 years or since you've been. And if I look at the statistics, just on sexual offenses, there's been a consistent decline.
And we are concerned about it. Yes.
Yeah, there's been consistent decline. And I'm trying to understand what you gave. I would have ended. You gave as a reason that you are now intervening and the issue of other areas not having Tutuzela centers. At the time you were appointed, sexual offences conviction rate in the Western Cape was at 80.4%. It has been dropping until we reach at 68%. Now with this drop, these interventions over years, have you been able to do them, or it's only after the last financial report, the last annual report that you started intervening?
No,
that will be my last one, I promise.
No, Minister, I have monthly meetings with senior management where we look at the stats, where we interrogate it, where we ask what can we do to improve, why are victims withdrawing matters. So it wasn't just a quick fix to get this.
Well, these ones are the ones that have gone to court. So it's conviction rate. It's not withdrawals. These are conviction rates.
Yes, Minister, I hear what you say. But for a witness to testify in court, it's difficult to explain to the court, to bare your soul of something intimate that has happened to you. We take the witnesses to the process. We've got court preparation officers. We've got dedicated courts that provide these services every day on a daily basis.
Okay, I've got follow-ups on the matter. Let's start, Mr. Mavundlela.
Thanks. Good morning, Advocate Bell, right?
Good morning.
Thanks. I am interested in this part in particular because recently there's been a declaration of the GBV as a real problem in South Africa. And then we are sitting with the Western Cape, as the Minister just said, probably on a sliding slope, which I'm sure we all do not want to see. And these stats that we're talking about now, it's only about the Western Cape. Can you at least find an imagination of what it would do to South Africa if that statistic is to somewhat find space into all the other areas in the country? Can you just for a moment reflect on what that would do to our fight about this thing? And also just 1 second, I'm just giving you an opportunity to explain it from where you see it, because from a strategic vision point that you're looking at from an NDPP position, you would have to then worry about this stat all over the country. And it would come in handy for the panel to understand it from your perspective. Can you at least just take me through that?
It would be devastating to the fight against gender-based violence. But also in the screening of our cases, we don't just look at whether it's a stat that would have a positive outcome. We apply the law, whether there is reasonable prospects of success, and we enroll all of that. For us, it's important that the voice of the victim is heard, that although a court might find a difficult finding, but there's reasonable prospects of success. We take you through the process. Your voice is heard. Justice is not just always in the outcome. Yes, the outcome instills confidence, but it's also about being heard, about treated with dignity and humanity. That is what justice is.
Mr. Mklu.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Bell, out of the concerns that have been raised in as far as the declining statistics is concerned, and taking from your responses, it would appear that there is more of a reaction to the challenge that your division is facing. And if this impression is correct, then it's concerning. Because at the heart of performance management, and for it to be effective, there has to be regular monitoring and evaluation of performance. And I don't see this coming from your responses, particularly taking into account that this challenge has been going on and recurring for quite a long time. And what I get from you is the interventions that were or that have been implemented. And the impression is that these interventions have been put in place recently and as a result of reacting to this challenge.
It is, thank you for the question and the opportunity. It is not just recent interventions. The statistics, especially of gender-based violence, is monitored nationally as well. So it is not just like in the last year we've given interventions. We've raised conviction rate at the regional court forum as well. And there a presiding regional court magistrate is chairing a forum just dealing with sexual offenses, the challenges arising. My office sits there and make inputs and interventions as well. So there's been constantly addressing us looking introspectively. Are we not dealing with the matters properly? Is it our case backlogs that take too long? So we've considered all of that in addressing it. And it's not just in the last year. We looked at capacitating those courts where there are sexual offenses, to train prosecutors better, to have experienced prosecutors that can do proper consultation with the witnesses as well.
Witnessing?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just follow up on a few questions. The first one is, it's linked to gender-based violence. It's the whole issue about domestic violence. And there was one prosecutor in Wynberg that refused to withdraw cases because it comes... Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, it's that I don't know if we have to believe statistics, but Mitchell's Plain has got the highest record of domestic violence, which is linked to gender-based violence. And there was a prosecutor in the Wynberg court that has refused to withdraw cases when a person wants to come. And we see this throughout the country that, cases are withdrawn. What would your vision be? What would your view be? What would your protocol or policies be to ensure that we have, the economic considerations why people are withdrawing it, but at least because the constant waste of money, making a case and then withdraw it, and then it doesn't send a good message. But that's the first one. The second one is that perhaps you could explain the issue about the POCA Act, because as far as my knowledge is that the provincial government has passed a law in which is making gangsters being a member of a gang illegal. But I haven't seen any statistics of anybody being arrested and being sent on that. And how, if we are going to take that with you should you be successful in your leadership, take it to other areas where crime is like in the different areas. I mean, I take Motherwell in Kabeja and so on. But also the issue, the third one, is the last one from my side. You say that, you start off by saying that, crime, that is passion to combat crime, and that's where this. But the murder rates on the Cape Flats, for example, and the prosecution rates are like kind of chalk and cheese. It is like, okay, thanks. It's like chalk and cheese. Just some statistics is like anything from Nyanga, Kailicha to Menenberg to Hanover Park. You will find anything between 30 and 40 murders per month. But the prosecution rate, now my question is how your interaction with the police, and if it happens there, and should you be successful, how it's going to be, whether it's Motherwell, whether it's other places where it happens, Deep Sloot or Colorado, El Dorado Park. How is that going to happen? You do blame the issue about guns and so on, but it's the organized crime and so on that is there. So those are the issues that of concern, that that you have a province there. You say that you have good infrastructure, you've got good policies, you've got good programs and so on. Yet that issue about crime still is really not. We don't see cases. Yes, I understand that the intimidation, and we need to look at the policy, and the minister spoke earlier sometime about how we, on the whistleblowers, but also the witnesses, because witnesses get gunned down. And the question is, how did the gun get into Wynberg Court?
Let's avoid too many multiple questions, otherwise the candidate might battle to respond.
Thank you, Chair.
Please.
My apologies. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Minister. I've made notes. Let me start with gender-based violence and Mitchell's Plain being the highest, and how we're dealing with it and a plan for that. Yes, your stats is correct. We've also picked it up in our stats. The senior public prosecutor there was very concerned, also our stakeholders. They have developed an excellent pathway referral program where if a victim of gender-based violence wants to withdraw a matter, she is counseled on where to find shelter, to make an informed decision, and what the impact of that withdrawal would be. It has shown excellent results, because it's not just the NPA working with the complainant, the victim. And you're right. Often it is because it is a family member who is responsible for the family. So it's although you're being abused, your income, your security, that of your family, you rely thereon. So that is why that referral pathway is important. So if you make that decision, you know the options that are available to you. There's counseling, there's an interdict that you can get, there's a shelter that you can go to. So, and we piloted in Mitchell's Plain. It has shown excellent results, and we are hoping with the work of our stakeholders that we can replicate it throughout the province. The prosecutor in the Wynberg area refusing to withdraw gender-based violence matters, that is correct. Not all prosecutors can withdraw matters. The senior public prosecutor is in charge with doing that. There are strict NPA guidelines on that, because we've seen today you withdraw on the matter, next week your femicide case. We want you to make an informed decision. We want you to be aware that there are services available where you can be safe. Your question on the high, let me start with your POCA being a gang member, and whether it's criminal and whether it can be prosecuted. The Commissioner of Police in all our meetings have asked that we develop the law in this regard, that we put a case forward, and that we also advance for the change of the legislation as to how that is being applied. In the stabilization project, that is one of the issues that the team will be looking at. You're correct, the murder rate is high in the Western Cape. But when we looked at the statistics provided by SEPS, and also from our own experience, there are 10 or 12 police stations that contribute to 72% of crime in the Western Cape. So it's quite, and it would be your crime of murder, robbery, extortion. So if we address those 10 or 12 police stations, we will be addressing 72% of crime in the Western Cape. But that's not something the NPA can do on our own. We can support SAPS in their work that they're doing. They're following intelligence on this, and I can't speak too much about it, but to bring stability to the province, to look at targeted interventions, to instill confidence, because to prosecute and to prosecute successfully, we need evidence. We need witnesses to come forward and to testify. Witnesses are scared. It's in all our reports why we cannot reach the conviction rate. And it happened at times that as soon as a witness has left the court, they're killed outside court. So it's difficult to prosecute those cases. It's heartbreaking for prosecutors as well. But do you force the witness and put their lives at risk, or do you withdraw the matter? And it often happens halfway through. The matter is enrolled. Court preparation officer has prepared the witness. The witness testifies brilliantly. But as soon as cross-examination starts, the witness changes its stance, and there your case goes. So it's of equal concern. But we found that with organized crime in the Western Cape, we have got most of the gang leaders on trial. But yet their reach is still out there. They're still benefiting. And we've cleared the vacuum for others. That's why there's fighting amongst for them to be up-and-coming gang leaders as well. The stabilization plan is designed to address this. Your top high level, your masterminds, and also the runners who are doing the shooting, to address them, to be able to get stability in the province. So it's of great concern to us. I hope I've answered all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last one is Advocate Mukhang.
Thank you. Minister, there are a few follow-ups, but I'll be to the point. When you started, you said in the early 90s, your experience was that of being, what can I say, parachuted, for a lack of a better word. I know you didn't use that word, to be where you are today, and you have had to work doubly hard. What does it look like? What did you see yourself being parachuted, and in what forms, and how would you use that now if you were to be NDPP in terms of transformation? Let me just give you all of them so that I don't hoard the space. And then you also said the leader in the province must have a vision. What is your vision currently as acting leader of the Western Cape? What is your current? Appointed. Apologies for that. As the leader of NPA in the Western Cape, your current vision, if you can break that down for us. And then you said also, you are at ease in court. That's where you're skilled. Now, I want to know how then would you manage a situation that just requires your understanding of what is happening in the courts, but your skills would have to be in strategic leadership, in management, dispute resolution, problem solving, everything else except being in the court, although understanding the court dynamics would help. And then the last part one, you mentioned the Jocelyn Smith case. And just now, you've actually, as you were responding to Mr. Nissen, you actually said that difficulties in terms of how people come forward, they get murdered sometimes after testifying. How then did we end up with a situation that from afar, for us as the public, was so sloppily handled? I'll tell you why I say sloppily handled. There were parties of people going every morning with Jocelyn's mother and others to go and look for Jocelyn. What was the sanctioning around that? Where were the police around that? What was the role of the NPA to manage that process? Where did it end? That kind of situation. More so that up to now, as far as I know, I'm open to correction, Jocelyn has still not been found, So that it was worrying. You also mentioned something about people, you have not been referred in any way to the ethics office or ethics committee or found wanting in that regard. I just want to know if you have, throughout your career, have had experiences where there has been a team member who reports to you who has had ethical challenges that you have had to deal with, or you know of and have had to give an opinion, and if so, how have you dealt with it? Thanks, Minister.
Okay, let's start with also a lot of questions, but with my vision for the Western Cape. My vision at the moment is to stabilize the Western Cape, to instill trust in victims, the public, that courts are safe spaces, that we still, despite the challenges, deliver an excellent service. For me, the biggest challenge is the backlog in cases. And that is also where we lose cases if a matter takes too long to be prosecuted. Memory fades. I have been advocating for a continuous role in the regional court, especially in sexual offences matters, where when the complainant, the victim testifies today, the matter is finalized at the end of the week. That you're not expected in 3 months' time, 4 months' time to be cross-examined on it. That's also where we lose cases, and it's unfair to victims and to family members and even the rights of the accused if matters take so long to be finalized. So reducing those backlogs, and that is also what the judicial officer, the regional court magistrate in charge of sexual offences, is working towards, to reduce that backlog so that witnesses testify, matter finish to end. My vision is to instill trust, to create a safer Western Cape where we can charge, deliver a speedy, just outcome to the community. and also based on principles and ethical decision making. Bringing matters to a finality. We live in a fast-paced era. People want answers almost immediately. We need to keep up with modern technology. What we've done in the Western Cape is we have moved to create a safer environment. We've moved towards virtual platforms, modernizing. We have, in dealing with our organized crime matters, and especially matters where there are use risk, where we use other accommodation. We've got facilities at the correctional services where trials are being heard. We're also using spaces in the regional court where there's adequate facility to drive those cases, so that to reduce backlog and that those high impact cases are finalized. What I said on being accelerated in my career, and maybe I should expand upon it. In 1995, I'm a woman of color, I'm educated, I meet the criteria to be in the High Court. I didn't immediately have the experience, but I was mentored. I received the necessary training. There wasn't an aspiration, prosecutors, ATP aspiration. Words fail me now. But there wasn't the program. So it's on-the-job training. That's why I believe in paying it forward, mentoring others, so that they don't have to struggle. So that is what I mean by being acutely aware of being accelerated early. But you also need to prove your skills and work very hard. You can't always rely on being a woman and a woman of color to be appointed. You need to do a good job. And our work is important because it affects the lives of at least two families, that of the accused as that of the victim. I hope I'm answering all the questions. The sloppy, what you refer to as the sloppy handling of the Jocelyn Smith matter, that was a huge concern, both to the prosecution and the investigation, because suddenly everybody had become a detective. And they're interviewing witnesses. It compromises the case. Yes, you want community involvement. It is good that we haven't become jaded, that it's a concern to everybody if a child is missing, but it must be handled responsibly. So I share your concerns, and we did share it, and we, in guiding the investigation, try to shield the integrity of our case and our witnesses as well, to protect the case, the interest of the case.
Thank you very much. I think we'll move away from this segment. As I said, I concluded my question with that, unless if there's a follow-up.
I didn't answer the ethical, whether I've been confronted. I'm not sure if it's needed.
Okay. You wanna go?
I have always, throughout my career, my ethical principles is known. Certain things are a no-go for me. But I have been called upon my profession to make difficult decisions and to lead in disciplinary matters where there was corruption by an employee, a co-worker, it's senior management. And it's difficult if that person is well-liked, it's well-respected, but that's part of being ethical, showing that there is a zero tolerance for corruption. So yes, I've had to make those difficult decisions in disciplinary hearings where I led the evidence, and the senior manager on senior management was dismissed.
Jenny, I think it might link with
Well, thank you very much. Again, I think much focus has been on the Western Cape, but the job is on the whole nation. If you say, according to stats and indicators of the performance of your organization, it has taken that long to start seeing results. If you are a successful candidate nationally, what would you do differently to yield results, not over the years, but almost immediately? Because there is an anticipation that the new head of the NPA will start changing things on a more faster pace with greater impact than to say we're still working on the systems. You said that the current leader has laid the foundation. So what would you do differently so that we begin to see dramatic differences, and also understanding that other 8 provinces may have different kinds of patterns and challenges and demographic profiles?
Can I just start off by saying there are prosecutors who work hard, committed, daily, and produce excellent results. There are challenging areas, and I think your question speaks to those challenging areas where communities have lost trust in the NPA's ability to deal with it. Ministers already pointed out gender-based violence. The NPA has already embarked on compulsory training for all prosecutors on gender-based violence as well as sexual offences. And as I've said, it has already yielded results in the Western Cape where these statistics have improved, where prosecutors are keenly aware of the victim-centric approach, and that is, as I've said, at the heart that we do. For us to make impact, principled decisions needs to be made. Operational independence and financial independence of the NPA is key at heart. There's been, and we've seen at the commissions, allegations of corruption. So corruption has to be addressed decisively, with urgency and with impact. And then the NPA, throughout, we not only have the IDEC, they will deal with the high-profile, highly complex matters. There you would have a dedicated team, skilled, knowledgeable in the law, that has to work. And how I would insulate them is through by protecting them from interference, making sure that there are systems in place, that those systems are monitored, that especially those cases, the prosecution plan, as I've said earlier on, is monitored with clear timelines, the risk assessed to it, the risk to prosecutors, the risk to witnesses, and importantly as well, engaging the judiciary, because we might be ready with those cases, but we will need courts for those matters to be heard and adjudicated with urgency, as well as getting our stakeholders on board. For corruption, DPSI, Intelligence Center, SIU, SARS, to take the profit out of crime so that those in charge of cartels are not making money while being prosecuting. So we will be attacking from all fronts, whether it's asset forfeiture, whether it's prosecution. We'll be, as soon as the matter is enrolled, ready to a plan to oppose bail, discussions with the judiciary when the matter will be heard.
Very much. Ms. Maluleka.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about what you would do differently, because the matters about ensuring that there's good collaboration with all the different institutions that you've mentioned, that's, I think, well accepted as a principle. What would you do differently, and how would we know that you're doing a good job in that regard?
I would, if I were to be appointed, I would get an audit of the cases currently on the roll, manage those cases, have a clear plan, receive regular reports and monitoring upon it. In the Jocelyn Smith case and all our big racketeering cases in the High Court, that is what has worked. That there's a project, there's a team leader, that we get all the stakeholders involved, and there's regular monitoring of the progress that is being done, that the risks identified are being mitigated, so that when confronting with risk, we have a plan how to deal with it. To be always ahead of and anticipate what could be happening. I'm thinking now of the point that I've made of being a strong litigator. That skill is important when doing when being the strategic advisor. You must have vision, and you must be agile and adaptable as well. And you must be able to motivate the team, change management at times as well. And you must be able to pull resources together to be innovative. So this being a good litigator also means that you must be able to be a leader, to be strategic, to motivate and keep the morale high, especially when it's a difficult province like the Western Cape, where your staff don't feel safe in the work environment where they are, but they're still doing the job. Every day they're there. They're showing up. They're doing good work.
I'll come back later.
Okay. Proceed, Mr. Mdau.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm not elaborating the point and overflogging the horse, but I think the issue around how would you do things differently, strategically, to change the situation around, expecting that paradigm shift. But what I get from you is what is currently in place. Your specialization units, you've got specialized commercial crime unit that deals with commercial crimes. You've got sexual offences courts or unit that deals with those types of crimes. But what I would want to hear from you is a strategic vision and a strategic shift from what we have, because what we have appears to be inadequate in dealing with these mammoth issues and tasks at hand. What would you come up? What type of strategy would you implement over and above what is currently in place?
I hear and I understand your difficulty with my explanation. One of the priorities of government in the medium-term development plan is building an ethical and capable state. That is, having institutions that we can trust, that are accountable, modernizing as well. I've already explained in the Western Cape how we are modernizing. How are we being innovative in mitigating the risk to staff, to witnesses, by having virtual courts as well. Drastically changing the strategy of the NPA is not going to assist. What is going to assist is accelerating that. Yes, we've got the IDEC. Yes, we've got the appointments. How are we going to take it forward? by making sure that they have got the necessary resources, by being disciplined in how we execute our prosecutorial mandate. Yes, in sexual offences courts, there's development. We've got additional courts. We've trained prosecutors, and we've seen the results. So I wouldn't necessarily temper that, but it's now about constant monitoring and evaluation if we're making impact. And if we're not making impact, change the strategy. Be agile. Be flexible about that. It's about rapid implementation so that we have that accountable, capable, ethical institution that the community can rely upon. By modernizing, keeping up with the pace of crime and criminals. That is what we're doing. It's not same old same. It's being innovative. Trying different projects in different areas to have positive results, and that in the Western Cape has assisted, and it has yielded results in both our essential infrastructure and sexual offences. There has been an increase in the conviction rate.
Maybe let me just ask, I just want to hop on this one. You are saying if you are to intervene, for example, you'd put in place monitoring and evaluation to track the cases, to track the case backlog. Does that mean it does not happen currently? And I'm raising this in reference because you keep on going to Western Cape, but there isn't a sense you are giving us as a panel that, for example, as we work in NPA, head office will ask for us as the Western Cape that these are statistics that we have, there's intervention that we need to see, and therefore I will build on that. It's almost like it doesn't exist. I'm going to have to put in place, but if it does exist, why is not yielding the results? And what is different? I think the panel is trying to understand, Advocate Bell, what is different? Because the issue, as I stated, the statistics, and I can go to the statistics of national in terms of either the convictions and all that, because that is produced for the last 5 years. One can do average, and that's the public outcry that we need to see improvements, not only in IDEC, in all other areas that we need to see improvement. Where's coming to complex crime, that has to do with cyber crime and all those things, that now we've got to train and bring the NPA of the future and the prosecutors that are trained in AI. But these basics.
High-profile matters, Minister, I can assure you, are being monitored in the Western Cape. Nationally, each province has to give
only high-profile cases.
And in the province, cases are monitored. There's outcomes. That's why we've got backlog cases at the regional court forum meetings, at the judge president. We have to account for our statistics and why it's not yielding results, whether it's infrastructure at some courts that's causing a delay. Do we move some of those cases? Yes, it is being monitored, and that's why I'm speaking about being.
EC and PEC are in the provincial level.
In REC, but it all fits in nationally as well. I'm not sure if Minister is following me. Yes.
Minister,
Okay, I just want to, if I can just jump in. So, as provincial head, you fit into the very top echelons of national leadership.
Yes.
You might not be in NDPP, but you fit as part of the key apex leadership of the national prosecuting.
Yes,
authority.
I am a DPP and I do fit in.
Yes.
Yes.
Could you maybe talk us through some of your own contributions at the national level? And where they may have been implemented and how they then become a feature in places other than the Western Cape. Perhaps an example?
When I was in charge of the High Court role, we piloted pre-trial conferences. We piloted it first in the High Court, then in the regional court, and it was with a success. It was also replicated there. For years, the Western Cape divisions plea and sentence agreements receiving a just outcome was also one of the highest. Because of when I was still a deputy, the challenges that we have with sexual offenses and making sure victims' voices are heard. With the support of the then director, I established a forum for sexual offences matters, where we discussed the challenges because of the concern with convictions, and that has been replicated throughout the country.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's the question about, nationally.
Yeah.
And one of the things of the NDPP is its independence. And you have stated your leadership skills and so on. And that you were a leader with regard to the staff, inclusive but also decisive. But there's also another factor externally, and that is influence and political pressure and other pressure. In terms of, do you have not a plan, but do you have a resolve as to how, when it comes to you, that you will maintain your ethical behavior and so on, so not give into that kind of and protect the sacrosanct nature of the NDPP?
As NDPP, as public servant, my allegiance is to the Constitution and the rule of law. I account only to Parliament, who serves the people of the country, who represents the people of the country, nobody else. I have been at times questioned in where I felt my independence was a bit questioned. And maybe I can expand on this a little bit. The Constitution and also the NPA Act makes it clear that the NPA decides on prosecution and the forum of prosecution. After COVID, the backlog in the High Court was exceptionally high. Because during COVID, and we could foresee this in our forecasting, we were only dealing with single accused matters. We had multiple accused matters on the trial. There was a new management in the jurisdiction of the judiciary. My advocates were questioned in open court as to why this matter is on the High Court roll. It affected, of course, confidence in the NPA in the area as well. Do we not believe in the victim's case? Have we not made a good decision? I addressed this with the judiciary. My concerns at the time were not well received, but I felt that my discretion and my constitutional mandate was being questioned, and it would have serious consequences. Section 179 of the Constitution and the NPA Act is clear. I had to convince the staff that we are in discussions with the judiciary and we are addressing it. The judiciary had valid concerns. Theirs is to effectively serve justice, ours as well. So we had robust discussions. For several months, we were almost at loggerheads, and that doesn't instill confidence in the justice system. But we were able, through working through it, to working through the stats, to breach that impasse. But I made it clear that certain questioning is not open for the discussion. Prosecuting is the mandate of the NPA. I'm pleased to say we're working very well with the judiciary in how cases are management. They are responsible for case flow that my office respects, and I am also respected for the decisions I made and at what forum to bring those cases, because we view the High Court as a court of high impact cases. Bringing those Section 9 being a gang member, to expand the law on that, to expand the law on a child being sold. And if a child murder in the Western Cape or sexual offences is what is impacting the safety of the community, it's at that forum that it must be held. Thank you.
I was going to say mine is a brief one. What is your definition of high-profile cases? I've heard you a few times say high-profile.
High profile is perhaps a wrong word. It is at the heart of what impacts the community. What would drive a community to feel safer and to instill confidence in the justice system? A high-profile matter might mean different things in different communities. In some communities, dealing with drugs effectively is a high-profile impact matter that affects the community. So it doesn't necessarily mean who the accused is, but it is how it impacts that community that the service is being delivered to.
Prof. again.
Just for the record, you said you sit in the senior leadership of the NPA. How regular are such meetings where you all sit as the leadership? Do you hold them regularly so that you find expression and bring in your vision? If you can just take us through whether that has been functioning normally, regularly, at all times.
Since my appointment as acting DPP and DPP, and even when I know there has been at times monthly national operations meetings, but when the strategy is settled and we know what the work needs to be done, those meetings are held monthly. The meeting with the entire NPA, with all the divisions, where it's not just NPS, National Prosecuting Services, that is held once a quarterly, where those issues are discussed. And if there's an urgent need for an issue to be addressed or finalized, a meeting will be called with the senior management to address that issue. For instance, when just before the strategy on dealing with organized crime were to be adopted, not all DPPs felt comfortable with the strategy and they wanted it to be more ventilated. So a special meeting was called to address the concerns that the DPPs had on that as well. So meetings are held regularly, yes.
Advocate Bell, you spoke quite a lot about trust. And in many respects, you were referring to it in terms of the trust that victims would have, right? But if you kind of zoom out a little bit and consider your own perceptions about the current levels of public trust in the NPA, what are those perceptions?
It is concerningly low if you read what is there. And perhaps it's also because of the past, the NPA didn't communicate fully the excellent work that we're doing. I've picked that up in my interactions with community. We invite students to do job shadowing at my office, where I regularly interact with them. And often, early in discussion, I would ask, come and work for the NPA. We do this, we do that. And they're like, why would we be doing that. But once you unpack the services that we provide, the skills there are in the NPA, what an honor it is to serve, and what a noble profession it is, and the good work that we do. Beyond on just working in those court hours, but working with communities, doing outreach, perceptions change immediately, and there's trust that they see that we're human beings, we work very hard, and that we are a caring NPA. So also communicating what it is that we do and why it is important and why certain reasons. It will and provide detailed reasons, accurate, and also not because of technology. It must happen almost as soon as there's an incident. We must be ready to communicate on that.
And maybe whilst we're talking about that, beyond communication, what else would you do to enhance the levels of public trust in the NPA?
Performance is key. Minister has pointed out sexual offences, the lag that there was in the Western Cape for quite some time, that it has improved. If you don't show results, you won't be trusted. You can bring a good news story, but you need to prove swift results where people feel it, to instill confidence.
I think that's helpful. The other thing you talked about is accountability as part of the narrative on trust. What would you do if you had to be appointed as the NDPP? What would you do to enhance the accountability of the NPA as an institution?
Accountability starts with good leadership, making sure that there are systems in place, that it's properly monitored, that there is, where there are transgressions, that it's executed upon quickly, but also lifting your staff morale, knowing that you would support them, that decisions have to be good decisions, and that we have to account for what it is that we're doing. And if you're not pulling your weight, that there will be consequences. So it's dealing with consequence management as well.
One of the criticisms, especially from civil society, of the NPA is how you deal with performance and accountability, transparency and accountability for performance. I'm not sure if you're aware of the criticism, especially around how you look at the statistics and how you communicate on that. What are your thoughts about that criticism, and is there something you would change?
For me, it is public education is also important. How we manage our stats as well. Stats and performance is important, but more importantly is that we are reaching the victims. We are not just statistics driven. We are about that your voice is heard, that you're treated with dignity and respect. We are not putting on the cases purely on the court roll because we will have a positive outcome. We make sure that there's reasonable prospects of success as well. And sometimes that is an acquittal. That is how the system works. But we need to be able to explain to community why there has been an acquittal.
Okay, no, thank you. One of the things around accountability, and especially around performance and perhaps other matters, is about being clear on to whom you account and when. Could you maybe share your thoughts on whom the accountability partners would be, and how you would engage with them?
The balance between accountability, protecting privacy, and the integrity of a case, it's a very fine balance. And I think as prosecutors, we rather shy away from saying too much. and that might cause concerns about that we're not truly, or we're seen as to be not truly accountable. The NDPP was recently confronted before the commission when she didn't want to give details about a particular person. That is that balance of being accountable and protecting the integrity of the investigation as well. But we must be mindful of where our accountability lies. As I've said several times now, it lies with Parliament as well as with the public, that we're able to explain our decisions.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Mr. Mvundlela.
Thanks, Minister. I think to a large extent I'm covered. I wanted to just understand from you, Advocate Bell, that currently there's been an outcry, and I would call it an outcry in South Africa, that we have seen commissions comes and goes and all those, and people have been wondering to what extent is the NPA actually then taking these matters forward, and we have not seen, at least to a greater degree, perhaps the NPA from the head office point, and that's where you aspire to go. I believe that's why you're sitting here with us. So, how do you see yourself improving that environment, if at all? Perhaps it may have been discussed among senior management, as you have answered my colleague, the AG.
Yes, there has been a lot of commissions. Commission on state capture, corruption, and the NPA. What is the NPA going to do? I believe that my view is that the Zondo Commission, as well as the NACAC, the National Advisory Commission on Corruption, has laid the basis for what must be done to tackle corruption in the country decisively. The NPA now has the IDEC. The IDEC was established only last year. They now have the digital tools. They're trying to attract more skills, as I said, more investment to insulate them, to be able to prosecute. But the NPA cannot do it alone. There will have to be reform as to how corruption is decisively addressed in the country. Certain law enforcement agencies has competing mandates, how that is being addressed. So the NACAC's recommendations is key to implementing corruption, and all the stakeholders working together and even consolidating some of the mandates that there is. How the NPA will work is and we've seen it, asset forfeiture must be at the front of everything that we do, and we do it with urgency. Whether it's in your organized crime space, whether it's in your corruption space as well. And also having dedicated courts to hear these matters. In the Western Cape, we only have one commercial court. We've recently established a footprint in the Southern Cape. That court, those cases by nature takes long, and it causes a huge backlog. So there has to be dedicated courts where these matters will be heard. So it's the NPA, yes, leading, but everybody else must give support in us getting a case, because and what community often forget, these recommendations from the commissions are but recommendations. It has to be investigated. It has to be credible, admissible evidence before court, before we can take it to court. And the pockets of these suspects are usually deep. They come up with Stalingrad tactics where we need to change. That's why I talked about agility and flexibility. We need to be on top of it, change our prosecution plan, have the best of the best. The IDEC should be the center of excellence in the NPA. And that would be where I would drive, making the IDEC fully insulated, independent, and operational, as well as all the other forums where corruption matters are heard. There must be a clear plan how we're going to deal with those matters. And we must have, and there's the skills enhancement, the training has now commenced for our prosecutors to deal with cybercrime, money laundering, having the necessary technology available. We must be able to keep pace with the modern challenges that crime, especially commercial crime, has confronted us with.
Thanks. Given the big institution the NPA is, you now sit at the top and you have all this hierarchical flow of the institution itself. You are currently the head in the Western Cape. There is the head in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and all over the places. How do you see yourself making sure that there is some kind of a uniform way of working throughout all these hierarchical layers of the NPA, because it can easily create a conflict.
That is why the prosecution policy of the NPA is key. It creates a standard of how prosecution decisions are made. That is where you have that standard, the norm. If you are arrested for drunken driving in the Western Cape, the same processes must be followed in Gauteng as well, where we have a standard. If there's a zero tolerance towards withdrawing a domestic violence cases, it must be replicated across the country.
Thank you. Thanks, Minister.
Okay. Let's move to I'm managing time now. Advocate Sipanya Mohale, your turn.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Okay. I was just going to say, as you're saying that uniformity in setting norms and standards, I would finish it off by saying, despite all that, or however, we still see poor performance. What would you do if you were to come in to deal with those? With the challenges around poor performance?
I would look at specifically where those poor performances are. Whether it's at a certain office, like we did with essential infrastructure. Why is that court not performing, but Weinberg is carrying the province in reaching it? What is happening there is, and we always start with ourselves. Is it the service that we deliver? Do we need to speak to SEPs and the other law enforcement agencies and have a clear plan there? It's about prioritizing the priority, having focus, dedicated areas. We can't prioritize everything. And that's why the prosecution priority strategy of the NPA is important. In the Western Cape, murders are rife. We're struggling with sexual offences. Firearms is a problem. In Gauteng, mining, zamazamas, that is a problem. That is how you address it. And that is how you're being responsive to the crime in the area so that that community that we serve there feels safer.
Advocate Nissan, do you still have questions from your side? Thank you. Mr. Mutlo.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Bell, now in response to challenges that you are facing in your division, there is a specialized court that you established in Kailisha. Did you establish?
The priority court?
Yes.
It worked wonders, but it had certain challenges. That court is no longer operational. The priority court initially started off as a drug court. The scourge of drugs was very high. Then it evolved to a court dealing with organized crime matters in the regional court. It was the same magistrate dealing with the same criminals. I am advocating, and I'm so glad you're asking that. So I'm hoping that my counterparts in the province will hear that we can replicate that in the bigger centers. I've spoken about the 12 stations that serves those courts, that we have a priority court at each of those centers to deal with the priorities of the community of that court services.
But you're saying there were challenges that led to that court.
The challenges is that the same presiding officer, if I appeared in front of him today, I'm arrested for drugs. I appear before him because it's a gang case. Tomorrow I'm arrested again. I appear again before you. So it's best to replicate it so that he doesn't know all the criminals in the organized crime area. And it's unrealistic to expect one court just to be dealing with all the organized crime in that division. We needed to spread that, and it's also, there were safety concerns attached to that. But it yielded excellent results.
But those concerns and challenges that you faced, didn't you foresee those challenges before you established that court?
It evolved. As I said, it started off as a drug court. It did brilliantly, and slowly it morphed into an organized crime, a court that basically just dealt with organized crime matters. I've had discussions with the regional court president to try and see, and she has made suggestions where we've placed cases elsewhere to try and address that. And when she looked at the establishment, she was fairly new in the province, that court wasn't an established court on the establishment of the division. It was a gentleman's handshake, and it worked well for everybody. But that is why it's important that systems not be dependent on who the leaders are at the current time, but that there are clear protocols in place for good practices like that to sustain.
Prof. Fiken.
Thank you very much. You took us through your almost 3 decades of career in the public service and also within the NPA. How would you characterize the institutional culture over that period of the organization itself?
It is
with all the changes that have been taking place.
There was the era of the dawn of democracy. And maybe I was, and that's not just because I was young and hopeful, but we were all excited and proud to be prosecutors. And we still are. I'm wearing my badge proudly. So on the lower levels of prosecution, nothing has changed. Yes, the morale is low. There's concerns about safety. And I might be, let me not say it, about salary, it has improved. So that morale is good. But as you move up higher, and we've seen at the previous interviews, there were concerns about the independency of the NPA. But there is a culture of working hard, of being committed. And I really want to pay homage to those prosecutors that work hard on a daily basis in very difficult circumstances. And that is where the face of justice is. It's not at national office. It's when you go into any magistrate's court, the prosecutors that serves you there, whether you receive justice. So there's a culture of working hard and dedication. There's some areas where you're correct, where there are concerns, and that needs to be addressed by principled leadership, accountability, and consequence management.
If you were the leader of the organization, how would you instill that ethical conduct across the organization in repositioning the organization?
the fact that we have the accountability structure of the Office of Ethics and Accountability is already assisting. I've looked at the stats that has been given. People are complaining. They're trusting the system as well, that their complaints will be addressed. It is also to show staff that this is our principles. We are the people's lawyer. Being the people's lawyer means serving with integrity, serving the people, and sometimes serving the people is even serving the accused, because we are officers of the court. By instilling that, and where that culture, that ethics is not followed, that there be reminders, that everybody knows what the strategy is, what we're working towards, and if there's transgressions, that there's swift consequence management, and that there's reporting about those transgressions and how we've acted upon it. We need to build a more resilient prosecution team, is one that trusts management, they trust the direction that we are going in.
In all those years, as a follow-up, have there been any divisions within the NPA that you have observed?
Divisions as to disagreement?
Not just disagreements where you deliberate, but where you say now there are divisions because there are blocks which take different positions at different moments.
There are robust discussions in the NPA where we feel, are we ready to move in their directions? And that's why I say I am consultative. I rather hear the robust discussion from you. I am concerned about the ones that are quiet. Why are we not hearing from you? Are you following our direction? Are you being ethical and accountable?
Maybe let me follow up again. Have you observed during that period divisions, not robust engagements, which are rather professional, where you say during this period, I think I can observe disagreements within the organization, or you have not witnessed any of that?
There has been at times when certain policy decisions or discretions from prosecutors have been taken away, that there has been disagreement, where prosecutors question certain decisions. Disagreement on, for instance, and an explanation about how the TRC cases were managed. Previously, the TRC cases were managed in a dedicated capacity within national office. But since the NDPPs are into office, that was given to the regions, and it's been actioned and it's been worked upon. So yes, it was being questioned, and I'm sure that there was disagreement as well. And it's important work that the NPA is now accelerating upon.
Maybe as I conclude, there's just one thing that I can't leave without asking. You spoke about the issue of ethics and public trust, but also the perception. I listened quite interestingly. Now, you're saying that since the Office of Ethics and Accountability has been there are complaints that are going there, and therefore they're being dealt with. But also, we all know there's code of conduct of NPA that has been there. And do you think those are sufficient to deal with, for example, allegations and public assumptions or public perception that some of the prosecutors are corrupt?
And that is why the hearing the concerns, and it's we don't know who is making that complaint. There's an anonymity in the complaints. It helps in addressing those concerns where there is, and I, even under the regulations, where I hear of allegations, I can now refer it to that unit to investigate that.
Last point on that one. Do you think that all public prosecutors should go through lifestyle audit?
Definitely, Minister. And somebody told me that don't forget to say about the vetting and the lifestyle audits. That is key. That is where you will see the red flags, Minister. So we fully support that should be happening.
Let me hand over to Ms. Maluleka to take us through your public comments. It's your last segment.
Thank you.
Of your questions. I can see you are relieved.
Thank you, Minister. Advocate Bell, you'd be delighted to know, as you've seen, that the 9 comments you received from the public were generally in support of your candidacy. So there's not much to engage with because you've seen them and you've also had opportunity to reflect on them. I will use the time just to check on something with you. You talked earlier on about your triumph in having the dismissal of the case against Bongo reversed, right? Sometimes we try to learn from our losses and we neglect to learn from our wins. In an era where we are facing many more cases relating to corruption, many more cases that are sensitive and high profile, what have you learned from that particular case that you might want to bring forward in preparing for the future?
What I've learned from that case is prosecution must have a plan. We must present the court with all the evidence. So if we, and the courts must know, the educators, that we will challenge the outcomes if we are not happy. We've learned from that because previously, and it's very stringent procedure to follow to challenge a case. But it shows that, and it instills confidence that we're all equal before the law. It doesn't matter what the profile of the accused is. We will follow the letter of the law. We will take the matter on appeal. It doesn't necessarily, we're not influenced by who the presiding judge is. The issue is for us is addressing corruption and addressing it at all levels and instilling confidence that we will deal with corruption. We will not be defined by corruption in the country. It is unacceptable. It influences negatively the growth and the potential of our country, and it steals others of opportunities, especially the youth in our country with a high unemployment rate.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to announce, Advocate Bell, that we've come to the end of your session, interaction with us. And thank you very much for availing yourself for this process and also for the work that you continue to do.
I just want to thank the panel for the opportunity. I am grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.